do you want to lose weight? Or do you at least want to keep from getting fat? If so, then experts say that the main thing you should do is not diet, is not exercise. No, according to experts, if you're serious about wanting to lose weight, or at least to keep from getting fat, the main thing you should do is stay away from fat people. Because experts have found that if you have friends that get fat, the likelihood that you'll get fat goes way up. In the same way, if teenage girls want to keep from getting pregnant, the main thing they can do is stay away from other girls who are getting pregnant, or from other girls who think that getting pregnant would be a neat thing to do. Because study after study has shown that if teenage girls are in an environment where other girls are getting pregnant, the odds go way up that they themselves will get pregnant. In our society, generally speaking, we like to boast about how independent we are. I'm my own man, we say. I'm my own woman. No one tells me what to do. I don't copy anyone else. I don't imitate anyone else. I decide what I'm going to do in my life. But the reality is that that's not true. Whether we realize it or not, much of the time we end up imitating someone else. For instance, back during the 1950s, when teenage boys wanted to show that they were rebels and that no one was going to tell them what to do with their lives, what did they do? They all went out and imitated each other, wearing blue jeans, white t-shirts, and leather jackets. Or in the 1970s and 80s, when 60s and 70s, when people wanted to show that they were rebels and no one was going to tell them what to do with their lives, what did they do? They went out and imitated each other, wearing tie-dye t-shirts, getting afro haircuts, and flashing the peace sign. And in the same way, even today, people who want to show that they're rebels and that they're not going to let the world around them tell them how to live their lives, what do? They all go out and imitate each other, dressing in black, wearing baggy pants, and piercing virtually every body part imaginable. The reality is that whether we're consciously aware of it or not, we spend much of our lives imitating other people. We see certain people, and there's something about them that causes us to think, hey, I want to be like that. Who do you imitate? Rachel Ray, Martha Stewart, Oprah Winfrey, Ben Roethlisberger, Donald Trump, Simon Cowell? Yeah. Or do you find yourself in some way imitating a parent or a classmate, a friend, a neighbor, or some teacher that you once had? You see, the question is not, will I imitate someone? That's a foregone conclusion. Whether we like to admit it or not, we do imitate other people. No, the only question is, who are we going to imitate? And here in this passage that we listen to today from the Apostle Paul's letter to the Philippians, he's encouraging us to put forth more efforts toward imitating Jesus. Although we often like to refer to our society as being a Christian nation, the reality is that most people don't put forth much of an effort at all toward imitating Jesus. But on some level, deep down inside, it seems that a lot of people know that they really should. For instance, every year, the people at the Gallup poll go across the United States and ask people, did you go to church last Sunday? And year after year, right around 40% of all Americans say, yeah, sure, I was in church last Sunday. 40% say that. But think about it. Do 40% of the people you know go to church each week? So a few years ago, what the people at Gallup poll did was they found a county in Ohio that their research said had a very typical population. And on a certain Sunday, they sent representatives into every church in that county to count how many people were actually there. But then, when they compared that number to the total number of people who lived in that county, guess what? Only about 20% were in church. But why then in surveys do 40% say they go to church each week? The answer is that 20% of those people are lying. Apparently, 20% of the people in those surveys don't go to church. But it seems that they know they really should. And so when the pollster calls them up and asks if they were in church, they lie and say yes, they were. And so that leaves only about 20%, or only about 1 out of every 5 people in this country go to a church and worship God on a given Sunday. Again, not exactly a very high percentage for a country that likes to think of itself as being a Christian nation. But what's even more troubling, I think, is this finding. Of all the young people growing up today, because so many of their families are not actively involved in a church, only about 4% of all young people growing up today will have a vibrant, meaningful relationship with God by the time they turn age 18. By the time they turn 18, if things continue as they currently are, only about 1 out of every 25 young people today will have a meaningful relationship with God. And what's even more troubling is another finding that says that if a young person has not at least begun to develop